Good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. I actually I wanted to take this moment to just share a few quotes that I've collected recently. I'm desperate. I really do feel like if things don't change, I just don't know. Our children's lives are at stake. Crime is up and my city is being destroyed. I'm scared and frightened. I think our country is at stake. I really, really do. You might think these are quotes that I collected in a war zone overseas. These are quotes from voters last week in America. We know that something is wrong. We feel divided. We feel divided politically, racially, economically, geographically. We feel polarized like we've never been before. We feel disconnected from each other at a time when we're supposed to be more connected than ever. We feel isolated. And we felt that way before COVID. I am here today, not just at University of Redlands, but here as Chief Service Officer in a cabinet level position created by Governor Newsom, because he knew we had to do something about this. That we had to find ways as a society to create opportunities for people to come together again, to have shared experiences around a common purpose, to unite, and to stop the division and the polarization that is tearing us apart. And I'm here because in California, we feel a huge sense of urgency, because of these challenges to create the civic infrastructure to meet this moment. And we also feel an incredible amount of hope because in California, we are creating the model for how to meet this moment. And I am so proud of what we are doing in California around service, around volunteerism, and around civic engagement to meet the challenges of today. And I'm just not gonna be bashful about it. I'm gonna brag about California. I'm gonna talk about how proud I am, how proud we are, because something special is happening here in this state. And which is why I am so grateful for this opportunity to be here with all of you and everyone who's online and watching and participating in this summit from around the world. I'm so grateful to Jim and Deb Fallows for creating this platform, this opportunity, and your leadership. I'm so grateful to JES, to Our Towns and the incredible team at Our Towns, to, of course, the University of Redlands for having us here and hosting this, to Esri, which is an incredible partner of ours at the state of California to help solving some of our biggest challenges. And of course, you heard it earlier, to Shelley Stockton for bringing us together, for having this opportunity, and for really giving us the opportunity to tell the Californian story, because it's a special story, and we think it's a model for the country. So why service? Why did Governor Newsom create a cabinet level position for service? Why has California invested at an unprecedented level to create service programs to bring people together? Well, the answer from our perspective is it's about opportunity. We have the opportunity through service to create a win-win-win. That's right, not just a win-win. That's boring. We want a win-win-win. Service, from our perspective, is a win for individuals. It gives us a chance when we come in community to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to belong to something. At the end of the day, all of us want to belong. We want to be part of something. It's in our nature. We're human beings. It's who we are. Aristotle talked about it. You can call it a team. You can call it a tribe. You can call it a community. We all want to belong. Service gives us that chance to connect to people. Service creates economic opportunity. For generations through the GI Bill, America has created a pathway to the middle class. For veterans through the GI Bill, have paid for college because of their service, have created VA benefits because of their service. We know the jobs that we're creating here in California through the service positions that and the programs that we're building. And it creates the chance for people to feel good about themselves. And yes, that's okay. We know from scientific research that volunteering in your community has both physical and mental health benefits. We know that the happiest people, the governor talks about this all the time. Think about it, the happiest people around us are volunteers. They're always so happy. Who isn't more happier than when you're helping somebody else? So we have the chance to give people through service the chance to feel good and have a meaningful life. It's also a win for our communities. The work that people like Brian, who you just heard from, are doing around climate, the work that's being done in our food banks around the state of California, that's being done by tutors and mentors at our schools, and a variety of other issues, these are lifting up our communities. These are changing our communities. These are bringing our communities together and creating a culture of me to we. And finally, service is a win for all of society. It's how we once again can rediscover our common humanity through service. I remember when I was stationed in Japan, being called in a couple of days after a 9.0 earthquake hit the country, being called into my boss's, the captain's office, saying, you have 3 hours to get down to Okinawa and fly out to the ship that's overseeing the entire humanitarian aid and disaster relief effort for Operation Tomodachi. My wife, who was 3 months pregnant at the time, we were super excited. We were going to call our parents at home that weekend and tell them that they're going to have their first grandchild. My wife was being evacuated because the Fukushima nuclear plant was starting to melt down. Don't worry, our kid glows in the dark, but he's totally fine other than that. So don't worry, you guys. I got to be a part of, because of my service, because of the opportunity that I had in the Navy, I got to be a part of what would become the largest humanitarian aid and disaster relief effort in military history, Operation Tomodachi. And what I learned in seeing that is the power that service can give us to create great things, to do big things to help people, and to do it side by side with people that didn't look like me, I guarantee didn't vote like me, didn't think like me, and came from very different places than I came from. That's the power of service, to bring people together to accomplish great things that help all of us. Now, the challenge is, I had that experience because I was in the military. Since 9/11, less than 1% of this country has served in the military. So if we think about how are we gonna scale this opportunity? How are we gonna create more opportunities? We have to look far beyond the normal programs that exist, beyond the military, beyond the Peace Corps. We have to create more opportunities at home. So when Governor Newsom was running his first time to be governor of California, he and I rolled out a plan called Uniting Californians in Service, with the idea that we would create opportunities for people in communities around California to work together, to solve problems together, to be side by side, to roll up their sleeves and rub shoulders together, despite what they thought, what they believed, what their political beliefs were, and that this would help everyone in our society. And since then, he created a cabinet-level position for service. I was fortunate enough to be appointed to them. And at California Volunteers, we believe that every Californian has something to contribute. That every California not only has something to contribute, but in a democracy actually needs to contribute. Democracy literally doesn't work if you don't. And so we're creating opportunities, whether you have an hour to give on a Saturday or you have a year to give, like our Climate Action Corps fellows, to serve your community and everything in between. And the truth is, and this is a little secret I try to let especially our young people in on, but this applies to everyone. The truth is, we need you. We need people to step up and to take action in their communities. And that's why we're creating the opportunities to do so. And we're creating these opportunities around the existential crises of our time. We know that student debt is an existential crisis to higher education and to future generations and their economic well-being. We also know that we have an existential crisis of our democracy. So this year, Governor Newsom swore in the first class of the Californians for All College Corps program, a program that is helping literally thousands of California students at universities all across the state create debt-free pathways by serving their community. It's a simple concept like the GI Bill. We're saying to literally thousands of Californians, if you are willing to serve your community, we're going to help you pay for college. So for over 3,200 students at 46 campuses, 19 community colleges, 16 CSUs, 7 UCs, and 4 private schools, for those 3,200 students who commit to 450 hours of service over a year, we're giving them $10,000 towards their education. And that $10,000 is actually important because if you're a Pell Grant student, you're a low-income student here, for instance, at a UC, that's the $10,000 that you have to either come up with by taking out loans, so you go into debt, or by working. So when I was a Pell Grant student, I had to wash golf carts at the local golf course. And now we're saying to our young people, you don't have to choose between your passion or a paycheck. You don't have to choose between your career or helping your community. With College Corps, we're going to give you the chance to do both. And College Corps is what gives me hope. And I'll say this right now, every state should have College Corps. It is how we will deal with the urgency of our student debt crisis, and it is how we will deal with the urgency of our democratic crisis. And Governor Newsom just wrote an op-ed in USA Today over the weekend, coming out of the election, to say to this country, College Corps is a down payment. It's a down payment on creating an opportunity for people to actually come together, to rebuild the social contract between government and our citizens, to empower people. And that's what we're doing here in California. In California, we know and we feel with great urgency that the climate crisis is not something that's coming. It's here. We are living in a 1,200-year drought. 1,200 years. People in this community know that. They feel it. For the last several years, my kids' schools closed because of things that they call, and this is going to shock you on the East Coast watching this, things they call smoke days. Not snow days, smoke days. Because kids can't go outside and breathe the air because of our fires. This year, we had the hottest temperatures on record over the summer, where people were dying in low-income communities because of heat in desert islands. The climate crisis is here. And we know that in California that we need big policies to deal with our climate crisis, but we also know that we need to mobilize and activate what we think is our most important asset, and that is the 40 million people that call California home. So 2 years ago, California created the country's first statewide Climate Action Corps, a brand new program that would engage Californians in taking climate action in their communities. We've had hundreds of fellows. You met one of them tonight. Others are in the room. We've had hundreds of fellows in communities all across the state of California organizing and engaging their fellow citizens to take climate action, having an impact by planting trees, building community gardens, doing urban forestry, redirecting edible food that would end up in a landfill, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions to those people who actually need it, and helping protect people's homes and communities from fire by helping people harden their homes, clear defensible space, and most importantly, engage literally tens of thousands of volunteers to take climate action across the state. And we're very, 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 very enthusiastic that the Biden administration and Congress have talked about creating a national climate corps, largely modeled off of what we're doing in California. We're even more enthusiastic that the Washington Post just reported a couple weeks ago that since we launched here in California, several other states have created their own climate corps. Climate Action Corps is what gives us hope that we can tackle the urgency of our climate crisis in this country. We also know that coming out of COVID, especially, we have a crisis of youth employment, of not just how do we give people jobs, but amidst the great resignation, how do we create jobs that are meaningful, that give people purpose? And so we in California created the Youth Jobs Corps to hire thousands of young people across California to do meaningful service opportunities. Young people who are low income, young people who are formerly incarcerated, our foster youth that are transitioning out, and who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to get into the labor market, because we believe that they have something to contribute, and we want to start their career, hopefully to follow, to continue to serve throughout their lives. The Youth Jobs Corps gives us hope that we can provide meaningful opportunities for our young people to serve in communities and to launch their careers. And every state should have a Youth Jobs Corps. We also know that young people want to create change, that they feel urgency around what's wrong in our society, the challenges facing our society, racism, growing inequality, climate change, and we got to create more opportunities for them. So we've increased the number of AmeriCorps positions in California, and we've increased the scholarships. So now if you do AmeriCorps in California, you will receive a $10,000 scholarship to either pay down student debt or put towards schools. Our AmeriCorps members give us hope. We also know that if we're going to solve these challenges, these really big challenges, whether it's climate change, poverty, homelessness, or the political division, that we have to engage everybody, literally everybody, in this fight. And so California launched a neighbor-to-neighbor initiative to strengthen communities, to create networks among neighbors to work together. And we've seen the impact of these programs. If you add up all the programs that we just talked about, the programs that are really fighting these existential issues, tackling these existential problems, and giving us hope, if you add up our College Corps members, our AmeriCorps members, our Youth Jobs Corps members, and our Climate Action Corps members, here in California alone, we are nearly twice the size of the Peace Corps. That is real change. That is impact. But let me tell you this, in the context of those numbers, inside those numbers, is actually the real powerful story here. And the powerful story inside of those numbers is the story of Min, a foster youth from San Francisco who attended UC Merced. And because of a service program that she did with one of our programs, working as a tutor in a low-income school, she's now dedicated her life to become a teacher. And we imagine in California what it would look like for thousands of people like her to now be inspired to dedicate their lives to public service. The real powerful story is Amaya, an African-American woman from Compton who decided to join the Climate Action Corps so that she could build the skills and the knowledge and the experience to bring back to her community to help them be resilient and to fight this climate crisis. And we imagine here in California, low-income communities all across the state being empowered with young people with these knowledge, with these skills, and with this knowledge to empower their community. The real powerful story is Augustus, a young man I met at a food bank who told me that he grew up in a very conservative household and that by working at the food bank, it has challenged and changed how he thinks about poverty and how he views poor people. And in a state where we think that service can help with political polarization and transform our culture, we see it happening on the ground. I think about Natalie, a young College Corps member I recently met, who said to me that the power of College Corps is not just that she gets $10,000, and it's not just that she's meeting people that are going to help her in her career and with her profession. For her, the power of College Corps was that she got to know her community for the first time. That's the story of our towns. That's renewal through people being connected to their community. College Corps gave Natalie that chance. The powerful story of this all is Duan, a man I met from just down the road in Indio, here in the Inland Empire, who, when I asked why he wanted to do a service program, he responded, because I wanted to be a model for my kids. We imagine parents all over California saying, I want to be a model for my kids, not because of how much money I make, not because of how much I work in the office, but because of how many people I serve, what kind of difference I make in society. And the powerful story is Ben, someone else from the Inland Empire, who, in the beginning of COVID, he's a senior citizen, a veteran, found himself isolated and at home, running out of food, scared to go outside. And because of our neighbor to neighbor program, we were able to deliver him groceries and critical supplies. And we imagine neighborhoods and networks all across the state being connected and helping people like Ben every day. So these stories, these powerful stories, this is the American story. These are stories of what is possible when we invest in service opportunities for people to help each other, to work together, to solve problems together. And here's my call to action. Let's make these stories possible everywhere. Join us by signing up at our website, californiansforall.ca.gov. Put down your phone, stop looking at Facebook and Twitter while it still exists. Stop watching cable news. Roll up your sleeves. Go join our Climate Action Corps members in the garden. Go to a food bank with our College Corps members. Go and tutor with our Senior Corps members. That's how we're going to show what's possible. And that's how we're going to make it a reality. And push your leaders around the state. Push your philanthropy leaders, your business leaders, your elected leaders, your education leaders. Push them to create more opportunities like we've done here in California. And consider us a partner. Consider us your partner, because our country needs to head down this path. I'll just finish by reflecting that a few days ago, we got to celebrate Veterans Day. And on Veterans Day, I was thinking back at a moment that I and most other veterans will never forget, which is the moment you sign on that dotted line when you're either enlisting or commissioning as an officer. You sign on that dotted line and you raise your right hand and you swear an oath to protect the Constitution and the country. And you think about in that moment, you think about what you're willing to give up to serve this country. How you're willing to give up time, weeks and months and sometimes years away from your family. How you're willing to give up control because you can be ordered to go anywhere at any time to do anything. You give up your mornings to do more push-ups than you ever thought you'd ever do in your life. And if necessary, you'd give up your life to serve this country. And it's also in that moment when you realize how much you actually love this country. And when you love something, won't you do anything to make it better? Won't you do anything to make it healthier? What, to protect it, to make it stronger? Whether it's your home, maybe it's a team that you're on, maybe it's your university, maybe it's your family. Patriotism is defined as love of country. Service is how we express that love. Service is how we make this country better. It is the gift that we've been given to live in America and in this democracy that we have the ability to make it better, to make it stronger, to protect it. MLK, Martin Luther King, said that everyone can be great because anyone can serve. That's the gift we've all been given. We've all been given the chance to serve and express our love of this country. And I truly believe that Americans are patriotic, that Americans love this country. And what we all need is the opportunity to express that love in positive, productive ways together. What we all need are more opportunities to serve. So thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me share the California story. And I now get to have a conversation with perhaps Redlands' proudest native son, James Fallows.
Josh, thank you so much. So thank you all for thank you, Josh, first of all. Thank you, Deb, you're looking as if I need to do something differently. Okay, so microphone, up, down. Maybe I'll just project. How about that? Okay, so I'll just put this down. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jefferson Educational Society. Thank you, University of Redlands and Lou. Thank you, Esri. Thank you, everybody. Josh, that was an extraordinary presentation you gave us and so many things to think about. I'm going to just say a word of introduction. So I'm Jim Fallows. I'm a graduate of Kingsbury School and Smiley School and Cope Junior High and Redlands High School. Some of you know my parents, Jim and Jean Fallows. Some of you know our sons, Tom and Tad, who are Josh's contemporaries, who we brought here. They spent many, many happy days in Redlands. You all know my wife, Deb, who is an honorary citizen of Redlands. And so Deb is here, and Shelley, if I didn't say, thank you, Shelley, for making this all possible. So Deb and I have had a chance to get to know Josh over a number of years now, and Josh is the real thing. You know, we are fascinated by the story of Cal Volunteers and of Josh and what he and his team are doing, because it is such an example for this state, the biggest state, the best state in my view, even though there are people viewing us from around the country. It's important for this state and it's important for the country that what you're doing. I'm going to ask you a few things about what you're doing here in California, why it matters for the rest of the country, and where you hope to go with all this. I have only one thing I might be able to add to your store of wisdom, which is Operation Tomodachi. You know the background of that? So our sons, your contemporaries, we lived in Japan for a couple of years when they were in school age. Tomodachi, of course, is friendship. Yes, Operation Friendship. So that was a very important thing that you were part of. I'm going to start in a way at the end. I'm going to ask you later about what's happening in California, but I'm going to ask you about the example for the rest of the country. And California is 1 American in every 8 lives in California. $1 of every 7 of America's GDP comes from here. What happens in California should be an example for the country as a whole. How do you find, are people, your counterparts in the rest of the country, are they listening to the California story? Are they saying, yes, you, Josh, and the administration here in California are doing important things? Are you getting traction with the story in other states?
Yeah, it's one of the things that gives me the most hope and excitement, honestly, is that we are getting traction. I referenced earlier, and Washington Post just covered the fact that since we launched the country's first statewide climate corps, several other states have now followed and are creating their own climate corps, places like Colorado and Maryland and Maine and Minnesota. And so we're seeing these ideas actually starting to get adopted. We've also had several states call us when we launched College Corps saying, I wish we could do that. How do we do that? And so the reality is, yes, I think the traction there, I think what we've seen is that there's thirst for this, honestly, that there's a real need. We saw not only national candidates in the 2020 election, people like Pete Buttigieg, who I served in the Navy with, and and President Biden run on national service plans. But we just saw Wes Moore, elected to the governor of Maryland, ran on a national service plan with a national service plan for Maryland. So I think we're seeing that these ideas are picking up, they're gaining traction because people know we have to do something. I mean, the track that we're on is not sustainable at all. And so I think there's a sense like we got to do something, and we know these models work. And so, or we at least we know the idea of service works. So yes, we are seeing. What I will say though is, and this is true because this is things that I hear from my counterparts in other states. It does take investment. That's the reality. Is that these programs are not free. They cost money. And Joe Biden once famously said, "Don't show me your values, show me your budget, and I'll show you your values." And if we're gonna value service and civic engagement and people coming together in community, we have to put resources behind it. And that's what's extraordinary and unprecedented, really, about what Governor Newsom has done and the California legislature is they have invested literally hundreds of millions of dollars for us to be able to launch College Corps, launch Climate Corps, launch Youth Jobs Corps. And so what we need to see now across the country is other leaders willing to step up in the same way.
So let me ask you a question that I think I have not asked you in the many conversations we've had before. You've mentioned, some of the examples around the country that are the states that are following the California model, and you're talking about Wes Moore and former mayor, now Secretary Pete Buttigieg, having some of these principles, and a number of the states, all the states you mentioned now have Democratic governors. And California is famous for it being a Democratic-based state now. You're talking about service, which traditionally should be a transpartisan or conservative value. How do you, as an official in a Democratic state with your Democratic counterparts, argue to your Republican counterparts too? This is an American theme. It's not a partisan theme.
Yeah, it's a great question because there is some truth to the fact that for whatever reasons, unfortunately, service has become politicized in some parts of our country. And so we were very intentional, for instance, when we launched Climate Action Corps. We piloted it in 5 communities across the state of California. We're extremely proud that Redlands was one of those communities, and Redlands was responsible for really proving the model, for showing that this could be successful. And that's what it has allowed this idea to spread. But we were very intentional about making sure that even though we were going to start it in places like Los Angeles or San Jose or Oakland, we were also going to go to Fresno. We were going to go to Butte County. We were going to go to places that are not liberal bastions of the state. And California is a diverse state. There's a lot of rural communities here, and conservative communities. And what we've seen, for instance, with this program in places like Fresno, I was just with the mayor of Fresno last week doing a service event talking about all these programs with the governor. And the mayor of Fresno is he was a retired law enforcement officer, Republican, who has fully embraced Climate Corps and all of our service programs and thinks about climate as beautifying Fresno. So for him, beautifying Fresno, which means planting trees and community gardens and the same things we see in Redlands and other places, helps him achieve his local goals. And he can talk about it in a way that's comfortable for him and for his community, but he can embrace the same idea, and it's working the same anywhere else. So it is something that we are definitely cognizant of, the dynamic that you're describing, and which is why I think we've been intentional to show that in conservative parts of our state, we have been successful. These programs do work, and they can be embraced by local leaders.
There are times in American history where service has had particular prominence, certainly under FDR with the CCC and all the other programs that FDR had during the Depression, certainly the Peace Corps, of course, and Sergeant Schreiber, whom we've talked about many times. We have, one of my mentors in journalism, Charlie Peters, the founder of the Washington Monthly, had been a very important, official in the Peace Corps. There are other times when I think AmeriCorps, when it was founded. So what lessons have you taken as you study how the CCC had success or setbacks, how the Peace Corps had success or setbacks? What have you learned from these moments in American history where service was so prominent?
Yeah, it's a great question because we do study it. We have to. It's worth noting again because the governor always notes it that refers to Sergeant Shriver as his hero. And so all members of our senior team in my office have to read the Sergeant Shriver biography written by your
Scott
friend.
Stossel, who's a
Exactly.
wonderful writer.
For this very reason, to study what was learned, to study how they built something from scratch, just like College Core is a brand new program we're building. Here's a couple of takeaways I've learned of this. One is I think you have to tie into the zeitgeist of the moment. And I think Peace Corps was a moment. It was the Cold War. Service was something. John F. Kennedy was a leader talking about how do you serve your country. There was a cultural moment that the Peace Corps hit, where people wanted to give back and wanted to show the best of America abroad, and that's why it was successful in that particular moment. I think there's a reason that Climate Action Corps has been so successful, and that this idea, because we're in another moment, a cultural moment, when much of our country, but especially young people, thinking about the planet they're going to inhabit, desperate to do something around climate and are desperate to be given the opportunity to do something. So our Climate Action Corps, for instance, even though several service programs across the country are having challenges now with recruitment, which is true, our Climate Action Corps here in California had 5 applicants for every 1 slot. Wow. And what that tells us, and our College Corps had 3 applicants for every 1 slot. What that tells us is that there is a thirst for this, and I think it's because of the issues that young people. So it's I think hitting the zeitgeist of the moment matters. One of the things we've learned from challenges in the past and we're trying to improve upon is service. I think for it to really scale, and we have to be honest with ourselves that although the CCC under FDR did employ a lot of people and have a big impact for a short period of time, things like the Peace Corps and other programs haven't really scaled. And so, I think about why is that the case? Part of it is there's a history of excluding people from these service programs. The CCC did not include women, did not include minorities originally. AmeriCorps does not include Dreamers in the program because of federal funding. So our College Corps program here in California, because it's state funded, is the first state service program to include our Dreamers in the population, which allows us to send the message to them. We value them. That's worth a round of applause. Thank you. We value them, we believe in them, and we know what they can contribute. But the message is we think everyone has something to contribute, and we want everyone to be involved, but you actually have to create that opportunity and be very intentional about it. And we haven't always gotten there with our service programs in this country.
To follow up on the ethic of service, you are a politically sophisticated person. You know, Josh was mayor of Novato. You know about the world of politics, and you know that the conventional wisdom in national elections have been that the young people never show up to vote. And it appears that was different this time. And is there any connection that you infer from your political knowledge or from running the program now about the connection between political turnout by young people in this year's election and the general sense of service you are seeing among young people?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I haven't thought about it deeply, and obviously we're still looking at the data to coming back, but it does appear that young people stood up. And I do think that there's a connection between the fact that young people stood up at the polls at a time when many people were worried whether our democracy was going to withstand last week's election, and are seeing, because they're seeing freedoms being taken away. They're seeing the climate crisis that isn't being dealt with as aggressively as we need to this desire to that we're seeing in California to want to create change. I mean, we have, I think, young people, are not just like knocking on our doors; they're literally knocking down our doors to be given something to do and to feel like they can be part of change. And I do think that's why we're seeing such enthusiasm with the service programs we're creating in California. And it's connected to this idea that I think, young people understand intuitively that something's not right. Things are off. And they deservedly want to have a voice. in the direction of this country. And I think they're exerting that voice, not just at the polls, but also in service programs, in nonprofits, in protests. And to me, that's very encouraging. I think one of the challenges we've had broadly in this country is we have so narrowly defined civic engagement to be voting every 2 or 4 years, jury duty if you can't get out of it, taxes if you can't find a loophole, right? Like there are so few ways to exercise your civic duty or responsibility. And I think what we're seeing now from young people is pushing the envelope to say, no, we want more opportunities. We want to have our voice heard in more platforms. And service is absolutely an important way, I think, that we can give people the chance to have their voices heard.
So I'm going to set up a question about the connections between your military service and your observations there and what you're doing now with volunteers. As Josh was saying, it's a reality of this moment that only about 1% of the American population served at any point in either any of our long wars. Recently, about less than 1% of the American population is in uniform at any given time now. As I've learned about this, I think there are two very powerful times in American history that actually are anomalies. One was sort of the World War II and Cold War era, where essentially everybody was involved in the military one way or another. And through the drafted army of the 50s and 60s, the cohort was so small and the military was so large that most people had a role in it. The other was the Civil War era, of course, which mobilized so many people. But generally, the U.S. has had a relatively small role of the military in its population. I mention that just number one as a prelude, as Deb will cringe as she hears me say this, to the most important essay in American intellectual history in my mind, which is William James's Moral Equivalent of War from 1910, of how to recreate the involvement that the Civil War brought out without the carnage the Civil War brought out. I'd like to say a little bit about how you decided to serve, and specifically the lessons of your service as a naval officer as they apply to a country in which 99% of the people are not going to be in the military.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I'm not sure that I fully have the answer, so I'll start with a little humility there. I'll start with maybe why I decided to serve. I really feel like, and I think there's a connection to why people like Wes Moore, who served post 9/11, Pete Buttigieg, we talked about, who also served post 9/11, to our generation. I think what we saw was, for those where 9/11 was a formative experience for our generation, and what we saw, and at least what we recollect, is that in the time period after 9/11, where I think most of us would have done just about anything our country asked us to, and it was a moment where there was actually brief unity, where we felt like we were connected again and we were united around something. We were told by our leaders to go shopping. And I think to many of us that was deeply offensive and concerning. And for a while I was angry, about that. And then it got to a point though where I kind of felt like I actually had to take some responsibility for that. That as a citizen, I couldn't just wait for someone to ask me to step up and serve. That I actually needed to do it. And I started thinking about around the time when we had a surge in Iraq. The Iraq War was going terribly. Afghanistan was going terribly. It was a presidential campaign where all the Democrats on one side were railing against our foreign policy, and it just occurred to me that there was this huge disconnect between our foreign policy that was going haywire, quite frankly, from many of our perspective. I mean, we were torturing people in Guantanamo without our country knowing about it, and a country where less than 1% of the people were serving. It was the first war where we didn't raise taxes. We actually lowered taxes. We didn't sell war bonds. We literally did not ask anyone to do anything. And it wasn't lost on us, I think, that those were connected. That in a democracy, you can't have our political leaders making policy decisions like going to war and have that completely disconnected from the citizenry. And so I think a lot of us, myself included, started thinking about, we actually had to be part of the game. We had to step up. And that's why I decided to commission in the military. And it was no one in my family had any military experience. I went to UC Berkeley, so there were not a lot of people around me that had military experience. But I felt like if I wasn't willing to serve, then how could we ask anyone else to? And if I wasn't willing to serve, then we're severing that connection between the citizenry and our policy decisions that is so necessary for democracy to thrive. So very sort of philosophical, I get it, and maybe esoteric. But what I learned is a couple of things. One is the story I shared in Japan, which is we actually can do really great things through service, through the military. Can do great things to help other people, and you do it with people that are so different than you, that literally come from different places, different religions, like I said, voted differently. And what I think the lesson learned is that I try to apply to what we're doing now in California, is when you have that experience, when you had the experience of accomplishing something real, whether it's building a community garden or feeding people at a food bank or working in Operation Tomodachi with other people, I think you come to realize that there's a common humanity we all have, that even if we disagree doesn't make us enemies. And that's the problem with the media ecosystem we have now, and a lot of the political incentives right now is we're led to believe that we're enemies, and I think a lot different than we actually are. And so I carry that experience of the military through with me today. But then the question and the challenge for all of us is, how do we recreate that opportunity for millions of Americans? That's the challenge we're trying to solve.
I have a whole bunch of questions I'm going to ask, but I'll give you a chance to. If you raise your hand, then we'll take some of your questions on index cards and we'll get to them. I have a question about another part of your experience. You were a former mayor. The current governor is a former mayor of San Francisco. Former mayor of Redlands is Pete Aguilar. Mayors have a role in American life. What did being a mayor teach you or the governor about what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and sometimes I remind them, the governor, that mayor to mayor, we relate. I'm just kidding. It's a great question because I've seen him operate in rooms where you can see the impact of having a mayor has on his decision making, because as a mayor you can't think in policy abstracts, which is, I think, what a lot of which is an easy thing to fall into as an elected official. As a mayor, you have to think, how is this going to impact people like on their street, right? How is this decision I'm making or this program I'm funding, what is this going to look like to the people I have to see at the grocery store, right? Or the people that are teaching my kids, literally. And so there's a direct connection where you think about policy in terms of how does it get implemented, and how does it impact people directly, that I think is extremely valuable. I think it's why mayors actually make great executives and also great legislators. Of course, I'm biased. I also think there's a recognition you get as a mayor, and you actually feel that like government can work. You can see government work. And I'll just give one, if I can give one short example, and then I know we have more questions. When I was mayor, I decided and I wanted to think about how to create more service opportunities, just the kind of things we're talking about today. And so I went to our local president, another private school like Redlands, a Dominican University in San Rafael. And I said, what would it look like if we created a local GI Bill, a local service program? So we created a program between the city of Novato and Dominican University, where if you graduated from a Novato high school and you committed to 2 summers of service with the city of Novato and you got into Dominican would give you $100,000 scholarship, which is essentially a free ride. Whoa. And it was a phenomenal program. It was extremely popular. It was small, but you get to see how you can actually make government work in a way that changes lives. You get to see that in ways you don't necessarily get to see that when you're in Sacramento or Washington, D.C. but it's that program and it's that model that I was able to start as a mayor, bring to Sacramento, and is now serving over 3,200 students across the state of California with the College Corps program.
Wow, that is amazing. And I have one mayor follow-up before giving Ben a chance with audience questions. Our current president was elected to the U.S. Senate when he was 29. What would he be doing differently if he had been a mayor?
Oh my goodness. You're going to put me on the spot with that question?
I'm just curious.
He'd be investing a lot more in service. How's that? That's a great question. First of all, that just makes me feel like I haven't really done anything with my life.
Well, it was from
29.
Delaware. Come on.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I'm not going to be critical of our president right now. But here's what I will say. I'm going to say that here's what I'll be critical of, and if you'll allow me to be partisan, I'm a Democrat. I'll be critical, I think, of some in our party, but also our progressive approach to government, which is we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of thinking and a lot of fighting and consternation about ideas and big policy ideas and big policy programs. And then we get them through and we stop paying attention to how they get implemented. And we stop thinking about how does this money that we just spent a lot of time fighting about in creating programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit and rental assistance and other big programs, how do we actually deliver that to the people who need it? And so I actually think, and this is again, I think as a mayor, you have to think this way, we cannot no longer just fight about big policy ideas. We need to be fighting about how to make government more effective in reaching the people that need it the most.
So thank you. So Ben, you have it's your turn for some audience questions. I have more to come, but
so, Jim, you're a mind reader because one of the audience questions was asking Josh how did being an elected official, specifically a mayor, help you most in your current role? So Jim's right in line with the audience. Josh, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think we've touched upon some of it. It gave us the model, and this is I think it's also, this is the power of, I think, Jim, what you and Deb have created with our towns, of telling the stories of what local communities are doing around the country and the really innovative things that can happen at a local level when you're a mayor and a local elected official, and being able to bring those ideas once you've tested them and modeled them, being able to bring those then to Sacramento or to Washington, D.C. I think that's really how I've mostly benefited.
So we heard a lot about opportunities for younger people. This person's asking, how can we develop meaningful opportunities at the same time for large numbers of baby boomers retiring every day? Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. It's super important. So, and the governor talks about, he just was with, like I mentioned, we were with him in Fresno. He talks about our experience corps. We have a senior corps program, and we just got $10 million in last year's budget to expand our senior corps to create more opportunities for that generation to use their many decades of wisdom and experience and expertise and knowledge to be able to serve as in really meaningful roles like being tutors and mentors to our young people. So we are starting to invest more in these programs. I sat on the Alzheimer's task force that Maria Shriver, everything comes back to the Shriver family, by the way, that Maria Shriver created because of the recognition and the role that volunteering and serving your community, feeling connected, waking up every day with a purpose, and not being isolated, the role that plays in mental health and physical health and in staving off things like Alzheimer's. And so I think we're starting to see a recognition from leadership, and which is why the state legislature is investing and the governor's investing in these programs, that it is critical for us to create more opportunities for older Californians to serve. One, because of the health and mental, both physical and mental health benefits of volunteering and serving, but also because we need you. I mean, again, if we're gonna deal with, we're coming out of COVID, where the learning loss has occurred, especially among our low income and our Black and brown students, is traumatic.
and it's severe. And we've identified in California one of the best ways to deal with learning loss is high dose tutoring. The White House has asked for 250,000 volunteers across the state, or I'm sorry, across the country, to meet this tutoring need to deal with COVID learning loss. And in California, you can do the math. You said 1 out of 8. We need tens of thousands of tutors and mentors. The population, Ben, that you just asked about is perfect and prime to meet this really important social need.
In talking about meeting social need, a comment, not a question, but this comes from Lorraine, currently a graduate student and alumni of the University of Redlands, who wants to thank Governor Gavin Newsom and you, Josh, for creating this California Volunteers opportunity, a network for volunteers like herself. Next week, she is going to be serving in Florida to assist with recovery efforts next week with Team Rubicon. Your website created this opportunity. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome, Florida. That's awesome. Thank you for stepping up.
So that is one example of ways to volunteer. Another audience question is asking us, aside from the Climate Action Corps fellows, what other opportunities for college graduates, those coming right out of college, how can they get plugged in? What can they do?
Yeah, so we have several AmeriCorps programs throughout the state, literally thousands of opportunities to earn a stipend and a scholarship, like I said, of up to $10,000 to pay down debt or put towards school. So we have several opportunities there for those who graduate. Our youth jobs corps, as I mentioned, is very much focused on non-college track young people. So for those who either aren't heading to college right away, or maybe are taking time off or wanting a gap, we have the youth jobs corps to do. But here's what I would also say is that, again, I want to be clear about this. To make a difference in our society and to engage in the kind of ways that we need people to engage, you don't need to commit a year. You don't need to commit 6 months. We need people volunteering in food banks. We need people being tutors and mentors. We need people coming to our climate action days that our Climate Action Corps fellows are organizing in cities all across the state. So there are so many ways to get involved. And what we're trying to do in California is create opportunities for literally everybody, to say to everyone needs to step up, and we're going to give you the chance to do that.
I'm going to follow up on that for a second. Something that's really impressive about your program and your site is if you have an afternoon, here's what you can do. If you have a week, here's what you can do. Could you just say a bit more about that menu of time commitment and opportunities?
Yeah, what we refer to it is a pyramid of civic engagement. So if you think about a pyramid, the top of the pyramid is our service members. So these are folks like Brian, who you met earlier, who's committing 11 months of his life to serve the community. You can serve for a period of time. In the second tier of the pyramid are folks who are asking to volunteer, where we've created a hub. We partnered with Volunteer Match to create a hub for you to find organizations locally in your community where you can volunteer around whatever issue you're passionate about. And that's where you could show up for an afternoon on a Saturday or every Tuesday night. And then at the bottom of the pyramid is where we have opportunities for everyone. And this is where we say literally everyone can take climate action. If you want to take climate action, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter if you're an urban community or rural community, here are the things you can do to take climate action, and that's the information and the resources that we provide. And then there's a whole list of other issues that we ask people to engage on as well.
Ben, back to you.
So, Josh, on service in particular of volunteering on nonprofit boards, how do we get more young people, this person is asking, to serve on nonprofit boards, seeing that as a volunteer opportunity as well? They specifically say the YMCA, maybe they are on that board, other established community organizations. How do you encourage volunteerism that way?
Yeah, I think it's it is a great way to be involved. I think one of the things we're trying to figure out, and our service programs haven't done this as well as we need to, is if you do a service program like the tens of thousands of Californians that we're going to have doing our service programs, how do we stay in touch with you and make sure that you are staying on a lifelong journey of service? And that that when you finish an AmeriCorps program or Climate Action Corps or College Corps, that you don't drop off, that we're actually putting you on a path of a lifetime of service, including in plugging you into those types of opportunities of being on a nonprofit board. I think the other thing that we just have to recognize, and this comes back to one of the challenges, I think, of what we learned from other service programs, is we have to make service and volunteering accessible and equitable. And that's not something that we've really done well, I think, historically in this country. And what I mean by that is we have to create the incentives for people who don't have a lot of economic means, maybe, or don't know other people who are on the nonprofit board, to be able to have access, to have mentors, to have the social networks, to even understand that those are possibilities. And so part of what we're creating, when we're being very intentional about creating these service programs in California, to focus on Pell Grant recipients, to focus on our dreamers, to focus in areas of communities that have too often been excluded. Our hope is that's going to create a generation of social networks, mentors, people who now will then be reaching back on the ladder and lifting people up to the kinds of opportunities you asked about.
And I'm going to follow up on that if I could. There are certain organizations that leave a lifelong imprint on their member. There are no former Marines, as you know. There are
Yep.
Marines, and political campaigns often have people who are lifelong alumni of them, and other. How do you think about creating some lifelong identity of having been a volunteer?
Yeah, such a great question. The Peace Corps does this great too. If you're a Peace Corps member, I mean, I think on a couple levels. One is we just have to start building it out. So right now, and if you know anyone, please spread the word. We're literally hiring our first alumni engagement director for California Volunteers. AmeriCorps does not have an alumni engagement director. It's not something that's been focused on. So part of it is we have to build the infrastructure, which again comes back to you have to have the resources to be able to hire people, which comes from the governor and the legislature investing in this. So we actually have to build the infrastructure to create the lifelong connection, right? And also set the tone right away, where if Brian shows up in his first day of climate action, the message that we're sending Brian is not thank you for signing up to serve for 11 months, but thank you for starting your lifelong journey of service, and setting that cultural expectation right away from the governor and the university president and the mayor on down, that we actually expect you to serve throughout your entire life. That's the kind of cultural change that we need. But I also just think lastly, that really the power of things like the Marine Corps or campaigns or the organizations is that when you have an intense and informative experience like that, you feel connected to that forever. And you want to, and you want to then, it's part of your identity, right? And so honestly, we talk about this, what we're trying to do in California is if we can create enough service programs where people feel connected to their community, whether it's Redlands or it's LA or it's Riverside or Oakland, but that they also feel connected to their state, to California, in the way that maybe a service member feels, a Marine feels connected to their country. If we can create that kind of connection, that's an identity that we hope people take with them the rest of their life. And then, like we talked about earlier, when you have that identity, when you love your community, when you love your state because you've had that experience, you're going to want to continue to serve it, to protect it and make it healthier.
Ben, over to you.
So I have one audience question left, and before I ask it, Jim, I wanted to allow any opportunity for follow-up or other questions you have, and then I will do housekeeping, and then I will ask that final question. So
the final question I'll ask is, you've been in this role, during the first term of Governor Newsom. You're in this role, we assume, for the second term of Governor Newsom. At the end of your time here, what do you hope is said about the California Volunteers program under Josh Fryday?
I hope what is said, and I don't think it'll be tied to me because we have an unbelievable team at California Volunteers, many of them who you know, Jim, of incredible people who make this possible. I do not make this possible. We have a number of people in this room who have made these programs possible, like our Climate Corps, people who are going to be leading our College Corps program. So this is a full partnership. What I hope at the end of Governor Newsom's term is people will say California created a model of what is possible for this country, and that we will have captured people's imagination for what is possible, when you invest in this work and when you invest in empowering people so that they can empower their communities. And if we do that, if we capture people's imagination in the same way I think people, a whole generation's imagination was captured from the Peace Corps and from other programs, I think we're gonna have a paradigm shift. We're gonna have a cultural shift in this country where people are gonna talk about and feel like they're in a country that's driven by compassion, that's driven by people caring about each other, and is driven by community. And I think we're on the track to do that, and I hope that's what we accomplish.
Well, let it be so. So Ben, over to you.
And the final audience question dovetails so nicely into that. If that is the goal, that is the hope. This person is asking, how do we help spread that message? What do we do to lift up those voices, lift up this story? Before I ask that, though, in a moment, I want to first thank everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you, the audience, for being a part of this, the inaugural Global Summit in Redlands. A big thanks to you. Of course, a big thanks to tonight's presenter, Mr. Josh Fryday, the Chief Service Officer at the state of California. A big thanks as well to both Jim and Deb Fallows for being a part of this, and the Our Towns Civic Foundation, our other partners, the University of Redlands, as well as Esri, the JES team for helping. And of course, thank you, Accelerate Neighborhood Climate Action, for being here tonight. And the housekeeping is friendly reminder, last program tomorrow, Hall of Letters, room 100. We will talk about women in Islam, learning from Dr. Beher Gaucher. Now that final question to you, Josh. How do we, the person in the room asking this on behalf of those here in the some 200 watching online, they've enlisted us all as part of this effort. How do we lift up this message, spread your word?
Well, the first thing you do is keep harassing Jim Fallows to keep writing about California volunteers. So if you can all help me in doing that, because Jim and Deb have just been extremely generous in helping lift up these stories of what we're trying to build from the very beginning, when it was really just an idea, to where we are now. And the governor gets very excited when he sees Jim Fallows write about stuff. So that's helpful. I first go to our website, californiansforall.ca.gov, sign up with us and help spread that website so that those opportunities we talked about, we share with others. And I would say for those of you who are in California, join us at our events, join us in our programs, join us, get out and, like I said, put down your phone, stop watching cable news and get out and get dirty with us. That would be the first thing. For those of you who are in other states and around the country and around the world, and I should share that when when we launched Climate Corps, his quote was, "We hope this becomes a model for how to mobilize citizen action at scale for the planet." And so for those of you around the country and around the world, we're in a unique moment right now where people understand that something's not right. People understand and can feel it in their bones that things are not on track, and it's scary. And so our leaders can either continue to feed off of that fear and divide us, or our leaders can start to invest in building the civic infrastructure to unite us and to bring us together. And I think every single one of you, both in California and across the country, can urge the people that and you all know, university presidents, business leaders, city council members, mayors, legislators, members of Congress, and philanthropists, religious leaders. Push the people in your community. Many of you are leaders. Push yourselves to invest in the civic infrastructure that's really necessary to meet this moment. And if we do that, I have a lot of hope for our future.